against my enemies, yeah. You see, you wanted to save you, and then learn how to rage.
What is up, everyone? I am Rob.
I'm Eamon.
Would you believe it's another Monster Fuzz?
It is a full episode. A full big normal episode.
Bonafide big bad ditties episode of Monster Fuzz.
Flex. Big chesticle flex.
Something semi-different today than the usual, would you say?
A little bit.
Perhaps?
This was, funnily enough, we were talking in the mini Fuzz last week about me falling asleep listening to 6 hours of stories with rain. This is one of the ones that I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, oh, what's going on? And I looked into it then. I think I woke up in the morning and this was playing and I kind of came to or whatever. It's a real interesting story. It was one that was quite popular in Unsolved Mysteries around 1995.
Cool.
And then it got solved a little bit later, but it's a very strange... I wouldn't even say true crime-ish. It is. There's an element of that in there, but more so it's just a very strange scenario. The reason it's in this is because it's been linked to Missing Persons 411 before. So there's a little bit at the end where we get into the more outlandish claims. Okay. But from reading it, you'll make up your own mind. It's an interesting story. That's all I'll say. And you'll be experiencing it along with the listeners.
And you're talking about being woken up in the middle of the night to weird things. I've actually, and Punani will be glad to hear this, there's about there's like a 40 to 50% chance that I have a leg cramp in this episode. So that'll be funny. I had, when I was in Japan, I kept getting calf cramps, and then I started getting them when I got home as well.
Right.
I think it's like, because like hiking I don't really get, I do a little bit, but I think a lot of walking on flat surfaces would probably shite like flat sole runners.
Yeah.
It causes me to get foot cramps or calf cramps. And
so it could get bad.
I was in Japan and like woke up in the middle of the night like going, oh, cunt. And yeah, it was really bad, and it's still sore. You know, when you get a cramp and it doesn't. Yes, it's like actually
like
damaged.
The muscle has actually been flexed too hard.
And when I came back, I had another one, and just the most awful thing, like
leg cramps are awful because you get to the point where you like it can't get any worse, and you're just stuck
doing
there.
This to me?
Yeah, I had one. I think it lasted like it was 2 minutes, and so it just contracted, and I was just like. Because after like the initial fuck, you're just stuck there being like,
it's horrible.
The worst part is like you're like, awful. I'll kill myself if this doesn't stop soon.
It's horrible.
It's so bad. Pain. My dad didn't get a leg cramp till he was like in his 50s or something. Right? First when he ever got, I remember waking up one morning and I just heard my dad going, oh fuck, and he's like sleeping in the room. So when he came out of my room, there's a bathroom between my room and my parents' room. And I like sprang out of bed thinking my dad was having a heart attack. But because of like the quickness of it and me jumping up, as I ran to the door, I got violent head spins and I had to like stop for a second because to come to. So eventually anyway, I came out and I opened the door and I was, Dad, you okay? He's like, I'm having my leg feels very sore. And I was like, what? He's like, it's like my calf. It just all of a sudden feels very, I was like, fucking leg cramp. Like, he's like, what? Like it's like he'd never unlocked this new malady. But yeah, he had never had one until he was in his 50s and just got a leg cramp. And
the first time horrible. I had one, I think I was 12 or 13, and I remember it well because I was up in Connolly Street Station or O'Connell Station, whatever the fuck it's called, up in Dublin. And me and the lads had just bought a lot of comics. And we were sitting up against
down for a lovely day,
sitting up against a lot of lockers. We were all about 13, 14, little delighted ourselves, little nerds. And like next thing, it just got me in the train station. I was like, "Oh, you bitch!" And they're fucking horrible. Yeah, and ever since I've had them, so sensation. Just so our listeners know, there could be a good highlight reel.
It's writhing like, fuck.
And the best thing to do with them is to just, if you ever get them, and this is for some survival instincts for our listeners, there, survival tips. Get straight up standing. Just like you need to fucking go up
to get the blood.
No, just to straighten it out. Just properly straighten it out. And kind of get up against the wall.
But it is tricky because as you're trying to straighten it out, it's rough. Like it's wrestling.
Oh, it's rough.
It's horrible.
It's rough. Like it's one of the worst pains I think ever. I fucking hate that.
The only thing that I think makes it survivable is because it doesn't last that long. Like tooth pain and back pain and any other like real high buzzer pain would be nothing to a leg cramp if a leg cramp lasted like just an ongoing amount of time.
See, the only thing is though, if you have a bad enough one like the one I have, it sort of leaves the residue of it's about to cramp again.
So you're like
at any point.
Yeah.
So that's quite awful.
I had piriformis, which is like a cramped muscle, and it was grand in certain like scenarios if you're in certain positions, but like the pain off that was like something I hadn't felt before. It's horrible, but it was an ongoing horror.
Yeah. Well, look, listeners, watch out for the leg cramps. Stay safe in these streets. I don't think I've had a hammy cramp, but they're supposed to be ghastly.
I can only imagine. Do you ever strain your hamstring? Like,
no.
I've strained it before, and that's horrible. Like, it's really sore, but I've never had a hamstring cramp.
That bitch. Maybe I have, though. I feel like maybe I have. It's one of them things that your brain probably puts to the back. But anyway, it's been 10 minutes. We've been talking about cramps.
Krampus.
Any type of cramp. Look, if your Irish cramps up, sometimes that's not great either.
Bad. There's no cramp where you're like, ooh, nice.
No, there isn't. So, Eamon, fill us in a little bit on an intro here about what this story is, who your man is, what's the crack with it, etc., etc.
So, it is about Devin Williams. Devin, one of 11. So we just need to get that out of the way. He was a 29-year-old truck driver from Detroit, Michigan. He was working for a company called D&J Transportation. And on March 7th, a mere 10 days before St. Patrick's Day, in 1995, Williams left his home in Detroit to make a delivery to the state of New York. He was driving a 1984 Ford LTL9000 semi-truck.
You have to say
Semi, that's right. Yeah. It's a semi truck. Yeah. I feel like I got run over by a semi.
Semi.
It's
not a semi.
Not a semi. Semi is what you have when you can't get fully erect. I have a semi-erection. So the truck was loaded with steel coils that was hauling them. So he's last seen on March 8th, 1995 in Lockport, New York. He had completed his delivery and he was scheduled to return to Detroit. However, he never made it back. On Saturday evening, the day before his disappearance, he telephones headquarters one last time. He complains of being unable to sleep, but he's determined to get back on the road. By Sunday morning, he was barreling through the woods of the Tonto National Forest, miles from any highway, for no reason. And to this day, no one knows why, and none of the theories make perfect sense.
I'm intrigued.
Pretty cool story, right?
That intro, Eamon, has me intrigued.
Do you know what I did? What I did there is I used ChatGPT. No, I didn't. I actually, this is the copy and paste. I can't use ChatGPT. I was using ChatGPT and it keeps giving me wrong information. So like, for example, we'll see at the end of this, it's obviously a missing persons case for a couple of years, and then it gets resolved to a certain extent. ChatGPT, nothing about the resolution.
Internet is eating itself. We've talked about it. Internet.
It's like the dragon at its tail. Dead internet theory. So, we actually do have an episode for every possible digression we can go down now.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's
just quite cool.
We have nearly 1,000 episodes.
It is, You have the power ones. We're also going to, by the way, as well, listeners have quite a few collaborations coming up as well. We put out those things on Instagram. We probably talked about them a bit here, where we basically wanted to know what podcasts you'd like to see us collaborate with, and we noted all of them.
So we will be on Joe Rogan Experience.
That's why actually we did mention that on the pod. So we will be reaching out to those now soon, and doing some more collaboration episodes as well, just for the crack. So that'll be fun because Tim. We have such a fantastic relationship with him, and that was just from a collaboration. So it's cool sometimes what can come from these.
It is cool as well, because I was like a fan of that show before,
and now it's Tim.
Yeah, now I hate it.
Now it's like,
no, but obviously it's a fantastic show, and Tim's just such a nice dude. So it's really nice to actually.
Well, we might be hanging out with him next year, so it's quite
possible.
Cool. So anyway, let's get into the nitty gritty and find out what happened with this mystery. On Sunday, May 28th, in Arizona's Tonto National Forest, the silence that nature provided was suddenly interrupted by the sounds of a 48-foot, 10-ton, 18-wheeler semi-truck barreling through the remote forest road. Nearby campers, Lynn and Jack Yarrington, stated that the road wasn't large enough for an 18-wheeler, and that they only would see 4-wheel trucks use the road, and even then, only sparingly.
So this is like I suppose to put it into context, this is kind of like being, to an extent, like in Edenvale or something like that.
He's in a logging track, basically, where he shouldn't be.
He should not be anywhere
It's probably
near.
it's probably like a kind of like a shitty kind of mountain path logging track kind of spot. So let's see. Right. So they claim that the 18-wheeler continued to drive back and forth on that road at a high rate of speed for much of the day, which is quite weird. Other campers had a close call with this same semi-truck. The 18-wheeler drove right at them head on, nearly running them over. The campers were able to reverse in time and get out of the way, but stated that the driver of the truck stared straight ahead with no expression on his face at all, almost as if he was looking right through them or didn't recognise anyone was in front of him at all. Scary. Later on in the day, a group of people having a picnic stumbled on the semi-truck, now stuck in a field. They left their vehicle to speak to the man standing next to the mired truck. One of the men in the group, named Charles Hall, asked the man how he got his truck stuck in the mud. The man replied, "They made me do it." This prompted Charles to ask what, and the man muttered under his breath, "No, you can't help me out. I'll never get it out of here. I'm going to jail." When Charles heard the man mention jail, he thought something sinister might be going on, such as a carjacking, hostage situation, or kidnapping. Charles stated that he had wondered if there was another person in the cab of the truck, possibly holding a weapon on the man. Despite the strange situation, the man made no attempt to ask them for help, nor keep them there with him. Really, so that's really weird.
Bizarre. So it's like basically, this, like, I think the fact that they made me do it is your first thing. That's the snippet from this that has people kind of go to the more conspiratorial, high strangeness. It'll like allow you to put in whatever you want there, you know, because who's they, what's going on. The other part as well is that we kind of forget this is 1995. So like no one really has mobile phones. No. And if you do have a mobile phone, the likelihood of having cell reception in this place is probably slim to none. So they can't really call for help, because the first thing you would do is you'd be like, oh fuck, you'll call the police, blah, blah, blah. But you can't do that here. So they have to wait for the spread of the news to finally get to a police officer. So at this point, he's like, you know, stuck, the 18-wheeler stuck, he's where he is. A lot of time elapses before the police actually get a chance to go and investigate what's going on. So it's a really, I suppose, of its time, bizarre, because nowadays you would quickly ring someone, even if you saw the semi reversing and going, you'd be like, something's weird here, we should call someone, give the reg plates. So this was a time when the world was a lot less connected, and so things could be, I suppose, because a lot of people are saying this poor guy, and as we go through the episode, you know, you'll have your own feelings about it, but one of the things was he obviously needed help. No one was in a position to really get him that help, you know.
So a semi-truck, is that like a flatbed, or is it more like an 18-wheeler? Like, I don't actually know.
So the only thing I know about semis is they're just really big. So I think that's the one where you have like the cab in the front.
Like an 18-wheeler, like?
Yeah, it'd be like, an 18-wheeler. So like big mother truckers.
All right.
That's like, so this is as big as a truck can get, I suppose.
Which is kind of a weird sort of imagery, even just one of them tearing around a field.
Well, it's like the start of Resi 4 or
Resi
it is,
2,
where your man's there with the burger, right? Like he's one of these guys.
Very strange, like even just why he's driving up and down there.
And this is the thing, again, we have some, the weird thing is, like, as we'll get into it, you've got some things where you go, well, obviously it was probably that. And then you go, oh no, probably wasn't that because of this. So there's a lot of moving parts to it. But anyway, we'll get a bit further into it. So later in the afternoon, a report came to the local Deputy Wells, about a truck stuck in the heart of the forest. So later in the afternoon. So again, like I said, this is a few hours have elapsed until he finds out what's going on. So the deputy was confused, like the campers, about how such a large truck would end up within the forest at all. When he went to investigate, he discovered the semi stuck in deep mud within a meadow. This meadow was located near Forest Service Road 137 in the Buck Springs area, nearly 20 miles from Highway 87. So he's basically taken a slip road off a highway and gone into a national park. Like, so what was he thinking? What was going on? Once Wells looked inside the truck, he discovered the cargo within undisturbed and intact. So he still had 1,200 boxes of lettuce and strawberries with the refrigeration still running. So I must again double check this because there was part, I don't know if that was another part of the cargo he was bringing back, because there was like steel girders or something that he had delivered up onto.
Yeah, usually
usually things.
Different. Yeah,
there's like the cooling system and all is still running in this, like, so it's perfect. Everything's exactly, well, not where it should be, but in terms of on the van, nothing's been stolen, nothing's been vandalized. It's as it should be, albeit there's this fucking giant truck just parked in the middle of nowhere. So no one was near the abandoned vehicle and the cab was locked. The deputy checked his national crime computer, which is that's a 1995 like Windows inside Britannia for crime. And he learned that there were no reports submitted for either a missing truck or a missing truck driver. He stated that when he peered through the window of the cab, the inside was very clean and there was no indications that foul play had taken place at all.
Mysterious, yeah. So, I mean, so right now, anyway, as of right now in the story, you're looking at it and you're kind of saying, like, he was compos mentis up until he loaded up his van again. He hitched new stuff, so he had every intention of getting back to where he came from in Detroit. And somewhere between where he is now and where he hitched up, something kind of went wrong. So interesting. So there was a second sighting here of him at 4 p.m. that same day. Lynn and Jack Harrington were driving through the forest along Forest Service Road 321 when they came upon a man off the side of the road near the trees. The man was partially kneeling on the ground staring at a tree. The man was mumbling to himself and they weren't able to make out exactly what he was saying. That's creepy. Oh Lord, shit too. Jack asked the man if he needed help or assistance, and the man simply said, "I've got to light the grill." The man was holding a $20 bill in his hand and hitting it repeatedly with a rock as if to start the fire. The couple looked around but didn't find any evidence of food that he may want to grill. He had nothing else with him at all. The man threw a rock at the couple's car and they decided it was time to leave, getting in the car and driving away. So this was actually the last confirmed sighting of Devin. When no one had heard from Devin that day and he was off schedule for his delivery, he was reported missing. Although those who knew him were certain Devin wasn't the type to abandon his truck, investigators had linked the missing man to the situation in the Tonto National Forest. Eyewitnesses were certain that the man acting strangely in the woods that day was the same man in the photos that they were shown, which was Devin Williams.
Yeah, so he's, as we'll get into it now, the kind of character of him. So you'll see when we explain it, he was not the kind of fella who would do something that would lead him into this situation. So there's a few people we know.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be surprised if they had a job driving a semi that they would fucking put it in the middle of nowhere, binned out of their mind on drugs or whatever. And you'd be like, oh yeah, he does stuff like that. That's what he does. I know him. Devin seemingly not that kind of character, not even historically, and not a reformed version of that. No addiction issues. So it's a very strange person for this to happen to. But again, there are some theories that will explain maybe a bit why that could have happened to him.
Okay.
And if you remember from the start, he was ringing his headquarters saying he couldn't sleep. So that plays into it as well. So Devin Eugene Williams, he's holding down a job as a long distance truck driver. He is hauling produce from the Midwest to the West Coast. He is a father of 3, and he raises his family in Americus in Kansas.
Some name.
It's some good, isn't it? The couple had just purchased a new home and they were in the process of making plans for the house as well as their future. Devin's wife would go on to say that this was the happiest point in their marriage right before he disappeared. So again, some people would say maybe he just wanted to get away from the marriage and he just wanted to disappear. Doesn't seem to be the case. Devin was described as a pleasant and patient man, with a co-worker saying that the only times she ever saw him get irritated was when he had to wait for his truck to be loaded because he was always eager to get back to his family.
All right.
After the events that unfolded, reports of Devin's disoriented behaviour and incoherence prompted suspicions that he may have been on drugs. But according to Tom Wilson, who was a co-worker of Devin's, that wasn't the case. He said, "We'd had no drug problem with him. He passed his drug tests and everything." So never popped hot for drugs. Yeah, just a bit of a bizarre situation.
Yeah, I think there probably are drugs out there that it maybe cause you to act away, but prolonged for like that long amount of time, like all day, like maybe mushrooms or something, something that would induce psychosis maybe. But I mean,
and like, you know, the truck, like, to be fair, look, truck drivers back in those days were known to be taking those pep pills,
probably,
which was basically amphetamine.
Yeah.
But again, according to this, he wasn't ever really involved in that. So
I mean, yeah, I suppose you could take from it what you will, really. So they're going to begin the investigation here. Investigators began to track Devin's movements leading up to his disappearance. They had learned that Devin had left his home on May the 23rd and he headed west. This was the route he took many times. He successfully delivered his haul to California and reloaded his truck for his trip back to the Midwest. Devin spoke to his boss, Tom Wilson, that evening, with Tom stating later that everything seemed normal, that Devin was on time and everything was going seemingly well. On Saturday evening, May 27th, Devin made his way into Kingman, Arizona. He would phone his work headquarters for the last time, telling them that he was unable to get any sleep, but that he was determined to get back on the road. After this, Devin was meant to arrive in Kansas City, Missouri on Monday morning, but he actually never made it out of Arizona. Detective Bruce Cornish went on to say that narcotics, mental health, nor criminal history were factors in Devin's disappearance. He went on to note that it was possible that Devin ran away of his own accord, pointing to the fact that his briefcase, his ice chest, and sleeping bag were all left in that truck, but that his duffel bag and favourite audio tapes were missing. For this to have happened, though, the entire episode in the forest on that Sunday would have needed to be an act. In the absence of any real evidence, investigators only had theories to deal with. A search was conducted for Devin using foot patrols, search dogs, volunteers and off-road vehicles, but all searches came up empty. No scraps of clothing, bone fragments, nor any trace of which direction Devin may have gone was discovered. The deputy involved in the case said that he conducted many missing person searches and not one had been conducted where they had not found a person except Devin's.
So this is where the missing 411 type stuff comes
in. Well, like searches though, like to sort of play devil's advocate in the, like, you know, someone can be dead in the woods and be extremely hard to find. Is like there was that Jay Slater kid that died from England, and he was on holidays in Tenerife, I think.
Oh yeah,
which is a small island, and they had his last cell phone location, all that shit. It took him a month to find him, and like he was literally, when they found him, not far at all from where his phone was pinged, and that was like where they know. So like, yeah, like that's just to play devil's advocate, that if it was a case of like, if you ever got lost in the woods, not being able to find someone lost in the woods, even when you use everything, isn't really,
it's not too surprising.
It just depends, especially in America, we're so vast. But this one, there's way too much weirdness.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on, like, and again, this is where you'll probably get into that, because the whole idea of missing 411 is effectively it starts getting into portals and Bigfoots and all sorts of stuff. Never sort of outwardly saying it, but it sort of alludes you to that. So there's lots of strange stuff in missing 411 where kids will say that a giant bear took care of them and helped them and brought them back, and then there's other ones where the kids are like, their shoes are found and, you know, they're killed. They've searched the same place twice, never found anything, and then the third time they search it, there's the body there in the place they've looked twice. So there's strange stuff like that. We don't get into as much of that, but you can see why a case like this might lend itself if you looked at it under this lens. So it's captured in that kind of, I don't think they ever did a 411 about it, but it is worth noting rather, that at this time, so between 1995 and 1997, this is I wouldn't say prominent, but it features on Unsolved Mysteries. So there's an open inquiry.
I've probably seen it, yeah. Like, I mean, at the time, probably.
Like, I don't know about your TV downstairs. Mine has like it's like built into the TV. It's just a channels. But there's a thing called Unsolved Mysteries TV. And it just plays them constantly. Cool. There's that. There's another one called Haunt. There's like an episode on Normie, the swamp monster, the other day. We
were all about swamp monsters and bogmen.
Yeah, man, I was like, you're fucking stealing my market share, Jesus. But yeah, so I would be surprised if I didn't see this come up there at some point. But it is worth mentioning that because that featured in the interim between 1995 and May the 2nd, 1997, which is when they actually had some resolution on this case. So there was a couple of hikers that were walking along the bottom of the Mogaloon Rim near the intersection of Forest Road 321 and Rim Road 300 in Gila County, about a quarter of a mile from where Devin had last been seen. This is an area that had already been previously searched for, or they'd rather previously searched for Devin there. These hikers stumbled upon a human skull. Dental records would later go on to confirm what many thought, that the skull belonged to Devin. There was no evidence of foul play on the skull, and no other remains were discovered. They were unable to determine Devin's cause of death based on the skull alone, and it is still unknown exactly what happened to him. Many would go on to speculate a few theories which would lead to his erratic behaviour. So one was a diabetic episode. There is a picture of him at the sort of start of this. He does look like someone who might get Diabetes. Sleep deprivation, which for me is probably one of the most prominent ones because he is there saying, I can't get sleep. And if you have to be on a strict timeline, if you miss your sleep window, you're kind of... So you can imagine, man, 3 days rather, maybe with no sleep. If that's what did happen, that would probably put you into maybe a psychotic state.
Or if he had taken sleep tablets and didn't sleep.
Yeah, the hypnotics.
So like if he like well, we don't know, but like maybe he went to like one of the truck stops and he was talking to another trucker and was like, fuck, I can't sleep. And a trucker was like, here man, like try a sleeping pill. Took a sleeping pill and maybe said, fuck it, after an hour or two they're not working, I'll keep driving. Yeah. I'll just drive on.
And it gets him into that weird state.
Because they
do. Yeah, the kind of ambient stuff where like you black out. It's possible. It's possible as well that even though he's cleared all his drug tests and, you know, he seems to be all grand in that regard, could be that he actually took some of those methamphetamines to keep him going, and maybe that's why he couldn't sleep for 3 days. But again, his drug tests are all clear, so...
probably isn't the type to just be popping them.
You wouldn't think so, based, but again, you know, it's all conjecture. Now, some of the other stuff they say that's kind of interesting. Obviously, mental illness. He just, whatever reason, he had a kind of a psychological breakdown or psychotic break, and narcotic use, as we've said. There's also possibly carbon monoxide poisoning. Yeah, but that you would imagine that if he got out of the van and there was a monoxide leak there, within about 5 hours, he probably would return to normal as he got fresh air, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, you would think that, but like, I don't know, unless like it was bad enough to render him sort of half brain dead. But like, like you would think that
you wouldn't imagine it, and they probably would have found an escape of monoxide when they investigated the truck. That's possible. The other thing they said was potentially sunstroke as well. If you do get way too much heat and not enough hydration, you can start going a bit loopy.
Yeah, it was happening to me in Japan. 42-degree real feel, but like 80 or 90% humidity, jet lagged, and I was just like, "This
if
is."
You can survive that, yeah. It happened to me in twice in Canada when I was landscaping. I forgot to bring water. Now there was a fountain there, so I could get a bit. But when you're busy, you wouldn't really take on as much. But I forgot sunscreen, and the heat was such that like when I got home, my mind was just, I just had these fucking bizarre thoughts. Like I wasn't quite normal, and I just had to sleep for a while and kind of get back to base.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one, like, because I think what makes it interesting is just that you have so much, like so many people who have seen him and have reported really weird and erratic behavior. So I suppose the mystery lies in like what made him to become so erratic.
Yeah, and this is the thing. And so we have and it actually comes from the Unsolved Mysteries website.
Right.
That this case is still, there's a little synopsis of it. But I have some of the comments that people have put in. Now it does, there's a popular comment that I found popping up again and again that was actually about demonic attack.
All right.
And it was about, why he's like, well, he said he just wanted to be with his family, so he sold his soul for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, the devil didn't really give his end of the bargain, if that's the case. But yeah, if you want to read them out, there's some interesting theories, some very normal theories, and then some kind of off-the-wall theories. And then sure, look, we can discuss what we think ourselves.
Yeah. So this guy says, I do not believe this man was on narcotics or alcohol since the behaviour lasted over 24 hours and no evidence at the scene indicated there were drugs. I do not believe his wife did this for money. According to reports, they lost their home and lived in a motorhome. Okay. What did she gain? That's actually, but losing her house is maybe a piece of the puzzle.
I think it was after, because obviously he couldn't pay
after the fact,
after
right.
this.
Also, I felt like she cared about him and her life was good in their eyes. I do not think it was heat stroke. This occurred in early June in northern Arizona, Coconino County. It is not that hot up there. I don't know about that now. Number one, he had a medical emergency that resulted in cognitive delay, such as diabetes, carbon monoxide poisoning, or a traumatic brain injury. Number two is that they think that he had maybe a mental health breakdown, with undiagnosed schizophrenia being a main factor. Some of the behaviours were schizoid indicators.
Like the kind of, certainly the stuff he's doing with the grill and all the rest of it. Like you've been around people or were on mushrooms yourself.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I know people who've had psychotic episodes and all. Unfortunately, in my case, most of the people I know, it was drug induced.
Yeah.
So it was like the drugs unlocked that. So my frame of reference is like, and I'm wrong in thinking this, but like that he couldn't just go from being like a regular dude to like full on fucking psychotic. But I don't know how it works. I'd imagine he can.
Like I'm sure. Usually there seems to be a gradual
you would
descent
think
into it. It doesn't seem like, because obviously with drugs it'll click all of a sudden. But when it's just purely psychological thing, I could be totally wrong.
Yeah,
I'm sure it happens both ways, but you would imagine there would be a slower progression.
You would think so, like, or at least warning signs.
Yeah.
The other one that these people think is just sleep deprivation. They think it was a long haul. He was sleeping in the truck. He developed insomnia psychosis that resulted in a 48 plus hours of being wide awake and living out the dreams he might have had in normal sleep. And that this person thinks is the most likely scenario. And there's evidence to support it, and if it's, that's what
well, like, say, for example, you've just been to Japan. You were on some fairly gnarly travel schedules. When I went to Brazil, I would have been up, say, at 8 in the morning for work. So up at 8 in the morning, the flight was at like 5 the following morning. So I did try to sleep, but I couldn't, because I had to leave at 2 o'clock or whatever to get there. So that was grand. I get there. The flight goes to Amsterdam, maybe 2 hours. I don't think I sleep at all there. Maybe I did, not off for a second, but I don't remember sleeping at all. By the time I get to Amsterdam, I'm waiting another hour or so to guess the flight to Brazil. The flight to Brazil is 12 hours. So by the time I actually get to Brazil, I've been awake a day and a half.
Yeah, that's what I was at. Yeah, 36 hours or that.
Now, when I then get to Brazil, then Paula collects me from the airport. So we go to Sao Paulo. And it's like 11 o'clock Brazilian time, which I think is like, so it's 2 days basically now that I'm awake nearly. And for some reason, once a month they play music in the pub, and of course they start playing music. So now I can't sleep for another 3 hours. I think I did sleep eventually, but I was up for like 2 days. Now I wasn't, no hallucination. No. I was just very like Mr. Soft. I was just like, cloudy and kind of like, I don't know what the fuck is going on anymore, but I was grand. But if I had to be like driving a truck another day of that, I don't think I would have had a psychological break, but I'm sure at some point during staying awake, maybe the third or fourth day, you start to get a bit gnarly.
They've done like sure they did that. We've referenced it on the show before, that show where people had to stay awake. Like people do start to do wacky shit, but like maybe this is a bit beyond the pale in terms of wackiness. Like,
well, it's just like at a certain point, the body just stops being awake.
Oh yeah, well, like you know your body just goes like I remember one time like I was on the piss with mates, and it was one of them nights where like the sun came up and we were still drinking, and we were like, do we just stay up? And we were like, yeah, we just stay up, and like that's all well and good, but like you do usually get to like maybe that nice. You're crashing burn, like
and as well. But I think the real fear about that stuff as well is, you know, this thing that you drink yourself sober or whatever. You don't ever drink yourself sober. You drink yourself to a point where you feel like you're sober, but like the reality is that you're probably making what seems like a rational decision, but it's just not.
To be fair, what I will say is, all I can say is my own personal experiences. I've been in some sleep-deprived states. I've been in some ghoulish states on drugs late at night.
You've all been there,
including drugs, by the way, which people usually would say like not to mix with alcohol at all, and drugs that people would say will make you black out and not know what you're doing and stuff like that. I never had any problems with them. So like that's just me, but that's like all. I'm just using me.
Well,
as
in the situations you're in as well, because you were like with buddies of yours, and even though you were all out having the crack, you would all look out for each other to a
maybe. But there's times like at the end of the night where you're on your own, like, and like you're still very much on drugs.
Well, that is a dangerous
and
time.
So like
overdosed on drugs.
But there's no reference to it. But I mean, look, again, this is only one person, but I was never in a situation where I was fully batshit, but then people do go fully batshit. So
this is it,
you know,
and you see some people who might, you know, they might smoke a joint for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, they might take coke for the first time. It's just you're so it's unfair of us to say that it's not possible, but we're not saying that. But it just, a lot of this doesn't really add up, you know.
So some people here are saying about diabetes, Eamon. What's that?
So one person who says, as a diabetic, I believe he may have been suffering from a diabetic emergency. When you're in a diabetic crisis, you are disoriented and out of your head. It's a dangerous situation. Now, they say someone should have gotten him help instead of writing him off as a wingnut. But to be fair, as we talked about before, it's 1995. Like, the sheriff does find it's very difficult to get help. It's not just a phone call away when you're in a national park, you know?
I was talking like about this to a friend of ours very recently about like my anxiety in the past, and like it was drug induced, but it's just a lifelong health thing that I have is anxiety. But like I was basically hospitalized with a panic attack. And I went through that, came out of hospital, was treated with medication for like a week or whatever. And after all of that, I still didn't realize that I had an anxiety condition.
Yeah.
And this was like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, open about that.
But like that wasn't on my rate. Like that, like even like say a term like generalized anxiety disorder or even like panic attack as a term were just totally foreign to me.
Yeah, and they like, even when you went in, they were like, oh, there's nothing wrong. They don't actually sit down and explain it. Like, you've never had this experience of your body and mind working against itself.
And then they just go, oh, sure.
They're like, oh, yeah, take these.
And then
calm your ass down.
But that's the only reason that I actually knew then was like getting prescribed these things for a week, Googling what they do, and then going, oh, that's what they think is wrong. Then taking them and going.
So they didn't actually tell you it was a panic attack at all?
No.
Jesus Christ.
They were just like, we don't know. Like, best of luck. Thoughts and prayers.
Calm down.
And then I reverse engineered it, figured it out, and went, oh, that's probably what. Okay, and then they worked, and then so you're like, all right, okay, it was anxiety.
And then you have that kind of a thing, like the best, not cure, but treatment, I suppose, for anxiety and panic attack is exposure therapy, where basically you force someone to live through the scary situation. Yeah. So for you might be like, fuck, I'm having a heart attack. But someone's like, no, you have to sit here and just, like, if you have a heart attack. See, the thing that you have to do with anxiety is you have to be okay with not being 100% certain. And that's the whole thing is like, they're like, what if? It's like, yeah, it's very improbable, but it's possible. It's possible that you're having a heart attack and you're not having a panic attack. Yeah. It's possible. Very, very minor, very like infinitesimal amount, but it's possible.
But that, you see, the thing is, and I think that was a bit different from me than from other people, was like, I never prior to this ever thought I had a heart condition. or anything like that.
But it's a very common symptom.
A lot of people would tell you, like, if they have health anxiety, they would go, oh, like, I think I'm having a heart attack all day, every day, or I can hear me heart beating all the time, or something like that. For me, it was, or at least what it seems to be with me, was in times of great stress, where at that particular time,
aware of your
family member, no, not even, I wasn't even aware of it.
Okay.
Family member was terminally ill, we're going through all that type of stuff. And then, for whatever reason, then my body was just like, here's a physical response to that. Yeah. Like, you might think in your head that there's no, like, and that's what I thought in my head. I was totally on top of it.
It's funny how it manifests itself, because I never had health anxiety, but I had always had anxiety, but it was always about like concepts, and a lot of it was about, like, I would probably be afraid of something like that happened to Devin would happen to me. Like, I would lose grip with reality.
But that is, in a way, health anxiety.
It is, yeah, that's true. It's just like mental health rather than, but even though I could feel my heart busting out of my chest and all, I was never, just whatever way I was wired, I was never worried about a heart attack, because I knew I had anxiety since I was a really small kid. So I was like, right, that's fine. I was like, so obviously the anxiety is just about to bring you fully over the fence now, and you're going to go nuts. But again, it's all the same shit, just manifesting itself in different ways. But it is
like worrying about anything to do with your health, even mental, because like there's a lot of people that have health anxiety who think that they're getting Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So like that's part of, like, it's all part of a mosaic is, like, kind of.
As you get older, because it's not like your anxiety, you learn to cope with it, but it doesn't really go away. My anxiety now is probably as bad as it always was. I'm just class at dealing with it now, whereas before I wasn't able to deal with it at all. But I would like I, now that I'm getting older, now's the time when like hard things will start to happen. So now when your heart starts beating faster, you can't fully go like, it's just the anxiety. Like, why do you feel calm then? Why do you feel chill? And when I did a first responders course, and he kind of got into the specifics of how the heart works and why these things happen. Don't do that, because if you have any fucking like thing of, so now I'll feel the heart going and I'll be like, oh yeah, it could be all right. But you just have to be like, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
My heart is grand. I never actually, funnily enough, ever had an issue with heart, but the source of the panic attack was that.
Yeah. Because that's the thing you become aware of. You can hear the blood in your ears, and because you get hyper focused on your body, because the feeling of like something's not right. So you're scanning everything. It's like if you just focus on your thumb, you'll start to feel all sorts of mad stuff in your thumb, even though there's nothing wrong with it, because you're hyper focusing and you're looking for
it's anything. Mad, man, because like with mine, it wasn't even palpitations. It was like a sharpness in the chest, and then all my extremities going numb.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, like, and then just like tunnel vision, and you're like, you can't see anything, can't hear anything. You're like,
so you're like, something's about to kick off.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense if you've never. And then the worst part is you have to get used to feeling that.
The second time I had one, like, even took me by surprise in a different way, because like it literally, it was like it was going on for months. Yeah, where it was this thing of like a gradual thing where like my mind was trying to take over, and it was like for ages and ages and ages, I like, whenever I put my head on the pillow, my head would hurt. And I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with my head? And it'd be just this gradual thing where like my head would hurt, and I could feel like tension. Now, to be fair, at that time I lived in a shitty damp apartment, so there probably was sinus issues there. Element of that, but like, I had this tension and this fullness in my head, and this was going on for months and months and months. Couldn't sleep. I was staying up till like 6 a.m. Of course, smoking big mad fat joints and all. Staying up till 6 a.m, sun would be coming up, and I'm like, why the fuck can't I sleep like Devin here? And then one day I was going on a date with a girl, first date, I think, maybe second date, and I woke up and my 2 legs were numb. I was like, jelly legs, Mick. And I was like, this is weird, like that my 2 legs are numb. And I didn't really like, I was just
still smoking big mad before.
Yeah, but I was just like, I was like, whatever, like, I don't know why they're numb, but grand. And walked downtown, then I went in, chatted to mates and stuff, and they were still numb, but I was like, whatever, who cares? And then I went down and met her, and like about 5 minutes meeting her, it was that thing where you're talking to someone and your eyes are just glazed over, and like I just had tunnel vision completely, and I was like, I need to go, sorry, I may get out of here.
When you look back on it now, because I understand when mine got to the panic attack stage, I understand why now. do you like understand, was your body trying to tell you something or trying to be like, stop doing this?
It was
or
like,
you're not paying enough attention to that, or?
Well, all of that happened when I was smoking loads of weed all the time.
Yeah.
So that was probably...
Which definitely doesn't help.
Like that. Yeah. And then also, all that time was, again, like I said, family members terminally ill, a lot of stress,
stuff going on.
So there's probably all those factors.
Like mine was kind of similar. Again, smoking way too much weed, smoking like 10 joints a day.
Yeah,
just
same.
Not literally just stopped going to college.
420 blaze.
And I was like, I'm gonna just pass everything. I did in the midst of a mental breakdown, which I'm pretty impressed by even now. But the weed was a big part of it. Just smoking way too much weed, and it does seem like there's some people who just, their body isn't primed for that amount of weed
for some people
too long. For some people, they're fine.
It works for anxiety for some people. It stops their anxiety.
If I smoke weed, I am pretty sure I might end up like Devin. I think if I smoke now, I won't enjoy it.
If I went hard in the paint, like if I tried to like pick up the torch and keep running like I did before, I'd say I'd probably have about 6 months and then I'm gone. Probably nuts. Yeah, I'm gone. Something.
I'm like in a buoy out to sea. I'm finished.
I don't think I'd be able.
No,
I think that was
misspent youth.
Well, you see, at the time when I would have started smoking, I needed it. It was something that I needed.
Yeah.
I think
same.
when I look back in hindsight, there was a lot of trauma that I hadn't dealt with, and I was young. I was 17. I was looking for something. Which I didn't realize at the time, but then when you look back, you go, okay, that's obvious.
I was self-medicating. I'm exactly the same again. I see all that now, but on the lead up, because like, to be fair, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff, it works till it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like drinking works. Yeah. Like it's, not, and I don't mean to like say drinking's class. I mean, if you are using it to medicate, it will work until it doesn't work, because you get to a point that you can't control it anymore, or that it just starts fucking your life up. You're too hungover to make it to work or whatever. But for me, it was the same. Like, I was finishing college. Obviously, I was going on to a next stage of my life. I wasn't paying attention to college or doing anything properly. And I think it was my body's way of being like, will you fucking cop yourself on? Like, will you cop yourself on? You need to get your shit together. But it did that by giving me a massive panic attack, borderline breakdown that then took me a couple of years to actually get my shit back together. Yeah. Because like, that's one thing that bothers me most about our mind-body connection, is that the language isn't the same. Like, if I say to my brain, what do you need? And he's like, listen, I feel a cold coming on. I'm going to need 10 hours of sleep tonight. I need you to take these supplements. This is what I need for tomorrow. Don't be looking at anything that's like true crimey, because you start feeling weird about yourself and bad. So don't do that. Watch some happy stuff today. And you're like, sound brain, I get what you need. I'm going to give you that. But it doesn't. It gives you like feelings and stuff that you can interpret as something different and actively drive you down the wrong path. It's fucking horrible.
It is, yeah. And then like for me, like even when I look back and I go like, well, why did I even, I think I had to make myself kind of even like the idea of smoking regularly anyway. When I actually think back to like the hows and the whys, and I remember smoking my first couple of joints, and I was smoking on my own. It wasn't like, I had a couple actually with friends like at the very beginning, but then like, and like getting my own bit and smoking by myself, like I was kind of, when I look back in hindsight, like you were making yourself like it because you needed something at that time.
But they're like, and even though we're saying that, some of the most euphoric moments in my life were like smoking joints by myself, and I was like, this is brilliant, as good as it can get.
Sitting in the bed out of me fucking bin,
out of me gourd,
listening to music with headphones on, just like a Tool or some like really good folk music, like trancey like metal, like Tool or something, like listening to 10,000 Days off your fucking bin. Which, by the way, if anyone still smokes and want a good experience, turn off all the lights, stick on 10,000 Days, Wings from Marie in the second part, I get fucking lit up. That used to be class. I used to love that. And like listening to music, I feel like smoking made me a lot more of like an empath. It was, and for a lot of people unlocks that. Like I remember my first girlfriend, like she came back to me years later and she was like, oh, I'm so glad you introduced me to weed and all, like, it was so great. And I'm like, I don't even fucking want that shit anymore. It's like mad. Like,
but it's funny because even like I remember the first time I tasted food high.
Yeah,
and
class.
I was like, are you fucking joking? This is like MSG, like on steroids. This is unbelievable.
I still remember, I think I've mentioned on the pod in the very early days, like there was one night where me and Wayne were out for fucking bin. And we went across Dublin on like a quest, and it wasn't like it wasn't that far, but like when you're out of your head, we went to get a kebab at like 2 a.m. from Zaytown, and like it was just this like quest to get there and back to the apartment, which actually Gordon all would have been in the apartment at the time. And we came back and we had that kebab was like, I can still taste that fucking kebab. It was class.
That first bite. Like, do you remember the first time we had sex when you were like,
great, right
or
stuff.
like one off the wrist or whatever?
Right stuff.
Like all the sensory stuff is just, it feels so nice.
And then it's like, it upsets you then because I'm legitimately upset that I can't enjoy that anymore because I'm like,
because we abused it.
No, we abused the fucking
but that's the way we are. Is like I feel like if we were like crackheads for hash, like. But if you get something, because like I said, I wasn't going to school. Like my parents were paying for me to go to college. I might go in and read a book I wanted to read in school every now and then. Like I've apologized to my dad. Now, to be fair, again, like I said, I had what can only be described as a borderline nervous breakdown with panic attacks while I did my final year exams in college, and I got through it. I passed everything. I got a 2-1. I was like, great. So that there's an element of resilience there, but it was still an awful experience that I wouldn't wish on anybody. Like when I think back, if I had to go through that now, I don't know if I'd make it.
No, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? No. Like I think it was the first time feeling it and you were just like, oh wow.
Yeah, I'd say like, look, truth be told, there's probably some listeners that are saying like, well, you know, maybe you were just like, especially listeners that smoke, like maybe you were predisposed to this kind of stuff anyway, and that's probably true too. But like,
I'm not blaming the hash for a minute. I don't blame the weed.
I do kind of, but
well, like it is directly responsible, but like it's not the fault of that. It's not like
well, that doesn't care if what we do to it.
Like the gun doesn't kill anyone. The rapper does.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it wasn't.
No. But to sort of circle back, I suppose, to Devin, who never had a history of drug use, to say going to something way more extreme than what we've ever had on drugs.
Yeah.
Some people seem to say that it's a demonic attack.
There you go.
They reckon that it happens more often than you think. A family man just trying to get home when in an exhausted state was vulnerable to spiritual attacks.
There you go.
His mind bouncing between doing what the evil spirits were telling him to do, go and get the lot lizards, like endangering others, and his true spirit that knew it was wrong. That's why he drove up and down the road, and when he drove into the field and got stuck, the joyride was over, and the evil spirits convinced him that he had to run and hide from what he had done. It's a scary thing to experience. So a lot of people are basically saying, long story short, possessions, right? Yeah. Now, I personally think, right, if we're going to let's chew the fat here and sort out the crack. I think, what do I think happened?
I think he didn't sleep for 3 days. I think it's possible that because he wasn't sleeping, he was afraid that he would fall asleep and not make his delivery, and maybe took an amphetamine for the first time ever from another truck buddy when he made his delivery, because he's like, fuck, I haven't slept in 2 days, and your man was like, here, this will keep you awake till you get home. He had no experience with what that would do to him, and then in his already weary state took like a fucking amphetamine, and that just clicked him. That's what I think the most rational thing is, but also demonic attack.
I think spores off the lettuce in the cab turn them into a zombie.
It has happened before.
Turn them into a zombie.
It could be the spores. There was a slight the freon gas escaped in the spores from the lettuce.
Zombie lettuce. Test the lettuce. figure out what's on
Probably
that
a bit
lettuce.
of cabbage in there as well.
Yeah, watch
We
out.
all know that when you store strawberries and lettuce together, they can amalgamate to become one of the most powerful jenkem narcotics.
Vegetable jankum. Really and truly, I don't know. It's a strange story.
Yeah, and no one does, to be
Like
fair.
it's like one of it's like that. Funnily enough, kind of a bit like that Jay Slater story, where maybe in years to come, people will have their own theories about that because it doesn't really make sense. Like the Jay Slater story, rest in peace, has only died recently.
Yeah,
but like young lad, for people who aren't familiar, 18, 19 years old, he's on his first holiday in Tenerife. He was out clubbing with mates, met two guys when he was out clubbing. They went back to a house party in the middle of fucking nowhere, which was like an 11-hour walk from where he was staying. And so he stayed out with them. They don't know what he was doing, but he was at a party or something with them for the night. I think he kind of kipped there maybe a little bit, got a bit of sleep.
And then decided he'd try to leave.
Got up in the morning, came out into the village. There was a bus stop. The woman that was sitting at the bus stop was like, "You just missed the bus, but there's another one coming in 2 hours. That'll bring it to where you're staying." Like, and with that, he just went, nah, and walked up a fucking mountain in like runners. And then went totally off track. And like he was calling his mates going like, "I don't know where I am and I have no water." Like on paper to me, like the thing that I was always saying before they found his body was like, why did he do that? And sometimes there doesn't because like that to me would be like,
it's irrational.
Especially when you're young, like it's like, I get it a bit. It's his first holiday.
I could
maybe
see myself
he's
doing
not,
something
but
like
11 hours through outback mountains when you could just take a road. This is what I'm saying. Like, I think most people would take a road.
Probably what we mightn't be taking into consideration is
age.
Age is one of them, but also like what were the drugs at that party? Because if someone said to me, "You have to wait 2 hours for a bus," if your mind wasn't
on the bag, maybe
you might be like, "I can't wait here for 2 hours,
and I can climb all the mountains."
Yeah, exactly.
Easy.
Or you're just so delirious that like, or you're having a romantic idea of, "I'll go to the mountain for an hour and then I'll come back and I'll get the thing," but because you're not really. And again, look, it's like that's the thing about this one as well. These are real people that this happened to, so we're fucking talking shite about demonic attacks.
Bigfoot.
And all. But there is, exactly. Bigfoot fucking.
Yeah, it was probably Bigfoot misled him.
Fucking, he's serving him.
Bigfoot misled him.
Bigfoot misled him, as he is wont to do. But there's a real person at the end, which makes it a little bit shittier when you're talking about.
You can't talk about interdimensional Bigfoot.
The muck monster and the bogmen doesn't really matter. You can say whatever you want, but yeah, these are real people, and I think that's obviously quite tragedy.
And like it's a real scary fucking thing. Like imagine you're those like hikers and all and campers and shit that are just out and like there's a motherfucker driving around in an 18-wheeler mad as a bag of spiders.
And he's going, "They made me do it." Again, that's the thing, that's everyone. But even when he says they made me do it, I feel that probably someone gave him the pill, said, "Look, this will keep you awake." They made me do it. Like
it could be. Do you know what? It could be something.
Be anything.
It could be something as simple as he pulled into a garage and a truck stop or whatever, and they had some of them. You know, them like tablets that are like mad random, like you know, like those Mickey tablets and all those that have like weird additives and like mad flowers and shit in them, like the head shop shit, like. Like he could have taken something like that and like one of the active ingredients, one of the ingredients, and it made him go fucking mad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that can happen. Now, I actually think you'd be more likely to go mad on one of them than like something like an amphetamine. Because like some of them shits, like I tried a couple of them head shop drugs back in the day, like, and they're fucking bad news. Like,
didn't a load of dudes get like badly addicted to spice?
Motherfuckers are still addicted to spice. Yeah, I don't know.
Spice.
That stuff is just fucking grim.
But
like I tried that back in the day.
I think I might have smoked.
It's grim.
I can't remember if I did or I didn't, but I didn't. Like,
I had a couple of the different head shop smokables.
Did they? What were they in relation to like an actual, let's say, soap bar that was like on the, how close was it? It
it never felt the same ever for me anyway.
But it just got you out of your head a little bit. So you didn't have to deal with being in your own head.
Yeah, like the spice that I had, like it was weird. It felt like almost like an upper and a downer at the same time. What I mean by that is like you felt almost like up, but your brain felt heavy.
Right.
So it was a kind of a weird feeling where you didn't really feel stoned, because usually with just stoned. Well, actually, With some weeds, I suppose it is more of a head thing, but it was maybe it was almost like smoking an indica and a sativa at the same time, where you're like up and also down.
Because that seems like if your
It's
body's
not
down
right.
and your mind's up, that doesn't.
It didn't. No, it wasn't right. Like it didn't feel right. It felt synthetic. Whatever it was, it felt wrong. But I don't know. To come back to him, I think something probably really shitty. Unfortunately, like the poor fucker died on his own, probably very confused in the woods.
Yeah. And then the reason it was probably so hard to find him is the animals went at him, and that's
in America, that's the thing. Yeah. Like, see, in Tenerife, where that young lad went missing, and as well in the likes of Ireland and stuff, your body's actually fairly likely to be decently preserved for a time because, well, the weather will get to it, but you won't have like big animals to fuck it up. Now, I don't know whether there's bears and stuff near where he was found. Where was he found? It was.
It's in America, so you'd imagine there's.
But it depends, like where because there's different. Yeah, there's different like areas where bears are not really around and things like that.
Cougars, though.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So, could like that's probably it. Like whether he could have been eaten while alive or eaten after the fact. But
you'd hope that whatever happened to him, he just kind of, maybe his heart just stopped.
Or
and and
passed out from exhaustion.
Yeah, it wasn't a horrible fucking drawn out experience for him. Because by all intents and based on the research, he actually seemed like a decent family man.
He was young enough as well, was he?
He was in his late 20s. Yeah, 3 kids, late 20s.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. So it's a mad little story. Room for speculation. I wonder was there ever anyone sort of, well, there wasn't, like, implicated as maybe a potential sort of.
Yeah, I don't think so. It doesn't. Certainly doesn't seem like it based on what the witnesses were saying. It's just bizarre though, the image of a sort of semi-truck coming through, barreling through the woods, getting lodged. Your man's being going around. What the fuck is going on? Like, it's just.
And even the people like just happening upon him, where he's like trying to.
Well, even that last one where he throws a rock at their truck or something, they're like, right, time to go now.
Yeah, So. Yeah, scary, strange story. Sadly, someone had to die in it. So yeah, that's always shit. But we'll leave it there. We'll hang up the close. But a little bit of mental health fuzz thrown in there, actually.
That's it. Look after yours.
Stay off the hash.
Don't go on the hash. No. Unless it helps your mental health, then work away on the hash. But then real life is the real problem, and hash is what you should be doing.
To play devil's advocate, there was a point in time when I was smoking hash that I would have said that smoking hash is good for my mind and it helps me. So
yeah, to be fair, look, no matter what you do, something's coming for your mind. Whether it's a real life situation or a drug, something's coming. Dementia.
We'll leave it there with those wise words from Eamon. I've been Rob.
I've been Eamon.
Monster Fuzz over and out.